In this lesson for salary part 3, we're going to do application problems for salary, or word problems. The first problem is, we get paid monthly in the amount of $1,876. We don't get any overtime for extra work, but we're trying to make a budget. What is your weekly salary? Remember, any time that we try to figure out the different pay periods, we always calculate the annual salary first. And in this case, since they give us monthly pay, our annual is going to be monthly times 12 because there's 12 months in a year. So to figure that out, we would take our monthly, they give us of $1,876, times it by 12, 12 months in a year, and our annual salary is going to be $22,512. Well, we need weekly salary because we're making a weekly budget. To find our weekly salary, we're going to take our annual and divide it by 52 because there's 52 weeks in a year. When we do that, we get $432.92 for our weekly pay. For our next example, your employer at Yoder's Bank is paid $952 for a normal work week. The normal work week is 36 hours. If they get paid time and a half for overtime, we're going to find gross earnings when she works 46 hours. So remember, our formula for gross pay is our regular earnings plus our overtime earnings. Well, the regular earnings are easy. They told us what they were. They were $952. We have to find our overtime earnings. And again, from our formulas from before, we know that our overtime earnings are overtime hours times overtime rate. Well, what are overtime hours? We worked 46 and our regular work week's 36. So 46 minus 36 is 10. 10 hours overtime. Now we have to find our overtime rate. From our previous lesson, remember, we have to find our regular rate times 1.5. And our regular rate is going to be our regular pay of $952 divided by our regular hours of 36. When you take 952 divided by 36, you'll get $26.44. And to find our overtime rate, we're going to take our $26.44 and multiply it by 1.5. That will give us $39.66 for our overtime rate. Now we have everything we need to calculate our overtime earnings. Our overtime hours we calculated were 10, and the calculated overtime rate was $39.66. When you multiply those together, we get our $952 plus, when we multiply them, we get $396.60. Finally, when we add our regular earnings and our overtime earnings, it comes out to $1,348.60. Let's do one more example. Castellots is a receptionist at a doctor's office, and they get paid $544 a week. They get time and a half for anything over 40 hours. We want to find the weekly gross earnings for the week if she worked 52 hours. So again, we start with our gross pay formula, which is gross pay is regular earnings plus overtime earnings. Regular earnings, we don't have to calculate those at all. They tell us what they are. They're $544. Remember, our overtime earnings are overtime hours times overtime rate. To figure that overtime hours out, we take our hours worked of 52, subtract a regular work week of 40, and get 12 hours for overtime. We also need to find our overtime rate. So to find our overtime rate, we're going to take our regular rate and multiply it by 1.5. To find our regular rate, we're going to take our regular earnings of 544 and divide them by our regular hours of 40. That will give us $13.60 regular pay. To find overtime pay, multiply that by 1.5. And the answer comes out $20.40. So 2040 is our overtime rate. Now we can figure out our gross earnings. We already have our regular earnings of 544 and our overtime hours and overtime rate, 12 times 1240 or 2040. And then we take our 544 regular and add our overtime pay. When we multiply our 12 and 2040, we get 244.80. And when that's added to 544, our gross pay comes out $788.80. Now you're ready to start worksheet 3.